Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Infernus, and welcome back to another comic book review. Now, this is going to be interesting because, unlike the last three reviews I did, which I did because of recency with, you know, my viewings of Thor: Love and Thunder, Miss Marvel, as well as Season 2 of Iron Fist, this one I'm doing because I have an interesting idea for it. Today's review is on What If, probably the most interesting of the MCU shows because it's not following like its own story with too much urgency, at least not until the last two episodes. It's really just trying to adapt some stories from the comics or at least do its own version of that. I don't know if any of these stories were actually done in the comics, but this is at least its own version of those comic stories based on events that happened within the MCU. And on that front, I think it's interesting overall. Now, I will say there are some things I'd like, before I introduce my idea, there are some things I'd like to get out of the way. First of all, I love the art style. All the characters look like their respective actors, and it's just a really good art style to boot. It's got a very comic book feel to it, very cell shaded, but at the same time, the animation in general is just really good too. Just the effects, the backgrounds, the character designs, even if they weren't directly based on the actors, these would still be really good character designs. And of course, the actual character animation looks pretty good too. And I also really like the Watcher as a character. He's very interesting. Someone who supposedly wishes he could do more, but knows he can't because that would end up causing some problems, and he doesn't break his oath until he feels like it's absolutely necessary. All right. So now that I've gotten the most consistent parts out of the way, here, let me actually change that. Yeah, that's probably going to work better for this one. So now that I've gotten that part out of the way, what's this idea I have? Well, since I'm sure you guys remember I believe it was part one of the three-part MCU ranking that I did. If you'll remember that, you'll know that I said this show was a very mixed bag in terms of its episodes, so covering it in the traditional sense wouldn't really feel right, at least to me. So, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to give you guys a little mini ranking inside this review. This is essentially going to be me going through each of the episodes, saying the pros and cons, and they're going to be listed from best to worst. So, anyways, let's get into this little mini ranking. So, last place, number 9 goes to What If Thor Was an Only Child? And I will say, I will be saying what like the change is that led to the little story that was being told. So with this one, this is essentially what if Odin decided not to adopt Loki in it was either Vanaheim or Niflheim. I don't know where the Frost Giants are, I forget. But this is essentially what if Loki wasn't adopted and Thor was Odin's only son. Now, I can see what they're trying to go for here since, he didn't have Loki there to ground him. He never learned humility or, right and wrong. So he's kind of just this party boy on Earth. The problem with that is and also I get it. Thor is a very goofy character in concept. It's one reason why I like the Taika Waititi. Taika Waititi? Who's Taika Waititi? The Taika Waititi movie so much is because they played into the goofiness of the concept of Thor, whereas the previous movies with the original and the Dark World took it a bit too seriously. So I get that here they wanted to give him a silly concept because it's very silly in concept. Fuck. I just said the same thing twice. It's a very silly character, so I get that they wanted to have kind of a fun concept for this episode. The only problem is that it ends up just being awkward. There's a lot of moments where you just want to slap Thor in the face, and I never thought I'd say that because I love the character of Thor, but yeah, this episode made me want to slap him in the face because he's just so, I don't know how to describe it. It's just he's oddly unbearable for most of it, just not taking anything seriously or taking into account the amount of damage his parties are doing. And I don't think he even stops until they call his mom. Yeah, they call his mom. She comes to Earth It's like all the high school party cliches, and I don't know, I just feel like they could have done something more interesting with the concept that's, less awkward. I mean, it's nice that they do throw in Captain Marvel into the mix because, like, yeah, this is something where this is definitely an emergency because Earth is taking a lot of damage, but like I don't think they really do a lot with her except for her helping Thor cover up all the loose ends with the party and stuff, or at least making his excuse more believable. But other than that, this is probably the only episode that I can't really say I like all that much. I mean, it's not the worst thing ever. I'd certainly watch this over, say, The Dark World anytime, any day of the week, because at least this one makes me feel something as opposed to The Dark World, even if the thing I'm feeling is rather negative. All right. Number 8 is What If Killmonger Rescued Tony Stark? Now, the change here comes from the beginning of Iron Man, where Killmonger is a part of the U.S. military, and he's able to throw the. I just realized that this thing up here kind of looks like a face, and now I can't unsee that. But anyways, I'm sorry. But essentially, what if Killmonger was able to throw the shrapnel missile away from Tony and basically save his life? So here, he doesn't get the arc reactor. He doesn't really change that much. He's still kind of doing the weapon stuff. I mean, the one good thing that comes out of this is that they do get rid of Obadiah Stane pretty early, so, the one major blemish on the original Iron Man, so that's something at least. The problem with this is that while they changed the inciting incident, they didn't really do much to the outcome. I feel like here, with this, it's just Killmonger's in the same spot that he was in Black Panther. He's still trying to take over Wakanda, so because of that, this ends up feeling like one of the more pointless episodes in the series. I wouldn't say this is a bad one. I can certainly say that I like this episode for what it is. This is just another one where I feel like the concept is kind of wasted. They could have done more with it, maybe show Killmonger in a more heroic light, which I know is kind of hard because that guy was a really bad dude in the original Black Panther. But who knows? Maybe they could have made that work. All right. Number 7 is What If Earth Lost Its Mightiest Heroes? I had to do a double take because I forgot the episode's name for a minute there, but I remembered it right as it was coming out of my mouth. Anyways, this works well as a mystery. The change here, okay, I might as well state one of my issues with this episode right off the bat. The change doesn't really show up until the end, and I get that's like the point of the mystery, but it's like you're doing an episode of What If, so why are you doing a mystery where the mystery is the change? Now, this isn't like a deal breaker or anything. This is still an interesting episode and also confirms the theory that like the first like bit of the like phase 1 of the MCU basically took place over a weekend or like just like a series of days. It's like Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, and Thor happened like back to back to back. I like that they at least confirmed that little concept. What I also like is that the mystery itself, when you find out what it is, it makes sense. And I didn't even say what the change was. The change is essentially, what if Hope Van Dyne, Wasp, was recruited into S.H.I.E.L.D., died, and then Hank went on a little revenge mission where he killed everyone who was in running for the Avengers Initiative with Tony Stark, Bruce Banner, uh, Natasha Romanoff, Clint Barton, and I think even Thor. Yeah, Thor as well. And he nearly succeeds, except, you have Nick Fury teaming up with Loki, and then eventually Loki is king of the world, essentially. So Nick has to call in Captain Marvel and also find Captain America. And I like the ending of this episode, I'll say that. I like that there's still this feeling of hope because Nick knows that he'll have two of the strongest Avengers on his side with, Captain America, the hero of the, I believe it was, I forget what side America was on in World War II because, I haven't taken a history class in ages. They essentially have the hero of America during World War II and then the most overpowered hero in the entire franchise. So, I like the ending. I like the mystery. I just don't know why you would make it a mystery if it's a what if scenario. All right. Next up is what if zombies? Man, that could have used a better name, but now a zombie story within the MCU, you gotta find a way to make it work, and they do. So this is essentially at the end of Ant-Man the Wasp. What if, while Janet Van Dyne was in the quantum realm, she contracted some kind of zombie infection, spread it to Hank, they go back and start infecting a bunch of other people, is essentially I can't get over this stupid face, but I'm sorry, but essentially like they spread it to the rest of the world and eventually to most of the Avengers, and you get to the point where there are only a few survivors left. Now the story itself takes place at the beginning of Infinity War when the infection has spread to the entire world. And I like that idea. I like that they at least justify the zombie invasion, but at the same time, I feel like there's not a lot to this one other than just MCU zombie apocalypse story. I'm glad that we got it. I just don't know if there's a lot else you can do with it, and I'm not really looking forward to that Marvel Zombies project they're doing, because like, what else can you do with this world? Like, what is that going to be? Just a continuation of the cliffhanger? I mean, I like that we get a cliffhanger for once, and it's very bleak, unlike this episode where it left off with a feeling of hope. This leaves you with the feeling of dread, because what's waiting at Wakanda? Zombie Thanos. Somehow, even though he has like the Power Stone at this point, right? But like, I like the concept. It just feels a bit generic for my taste. And at the end of the day, I'll take being generic. I'll take it being generic over it just not being as good as the others any day. Right. What are we on at this point? 5? Yeah, 5. Number 5 is what if Captain Carter was the first Avenger? Now, I see a lot of people putting this one at the very bottom because, yeah, they have a good point. This feels very similar to the first Avenger, where it's just going through all the different plot beats that Steve went through. At the same time, I feel like there are some interesting themes discussed here. Now, of course, this takes place in the 1940s when women weren't fully accepted as highly as men. So, of course, there would be people who would have a problem with Peggy, a woman, being Captain America, being the face of America. But I feel, yeah, with that concept, it leads to a lot of ideas. And it's nice that they still create a scenario where Steve is able to get on the action. They have Howard Stark create essentially just just like the precursor to the Ironmonger suit, except cooler looking because it has a much cooler name, the Hydra Stomper. Yeah, Ironmonger, I don't even know what monger means, but Hydra Stomper, I mean, it's generic, but sounds cool as hell. And like, even near the end, they do some interesting stuff where instead of Red Skull being sucked through a wormhole by the Tesseract, they use the Tesseract to bring in like these interdimensional octopus creatures that attack Steve, attack Peggy, and of course it still ends with the holder of the shield being lost for nearly, what was it, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, for like essentially 7 to 8 decades. I had to count on my fingers there, but yeah, like, I get why people don't like this one, but to me it just hit right because it's very formulaic, very similar to the original source material, but it still finds a way to be fresh. And I think that's really what if set out to do. Maybe do tell some stories that are similar to the source material, but keep it fresh and interesting so that it's not boring. Right. Number 4 is what if King T'Challa became a Star-Lord? Now, I know King isn't in there. That kind of just came out, but I think what's interesting about this one is that because T'Challa is, of a higher morality than Peter Quill. I'm not saying that Peter Quill is morally bad. It's just that T'Challa is just a good guy in general. So of course, whereas you have Peter Quill doing all these space heists and all that, with T'Challa, they essentially give us the MCU version of Robin Hood. And for T'Challa, I think that works. And something that I also really like here is that he's so convincing with how good he is that even Thanos joins the Ravagers. Like, that is not something I ever thought I'd say, but you have Thanos actually doing the right thing. Like, I know he's saying, like, oh, I'm doing the right thing by snapping away half the universe, but really, this is him doing the right thing. Like, of course, he's still saying, like, oh, my method has some merits, but he's like, yeah, he makes a better point. This T'Challa guy, yeah, that's how you help the universe. And of course, I do like that they do go to the Collector and they bring in Howard the Duck. They have all that. Actually, let Howard the Duck be fully in something good. No, I haven't seen that movie, and no, I don't want to. That's getting a 1 out of 5 for sure if I ever watch it. But it's like, I think with this, the best thing about it is that they play into the morality of T'Challa and how he plays off of others and just his views on people, how he's able to sway people to the good side so that they can do better for the galaxy. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing. Oh, wait, actually, I'm going to stop there. But I was going to say I wouldn't mind seeing a whole movie, like a whole Guardians of the Galaxy spinoff with T'Challa in the lead, but we can't have that now, unfortunately. Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. But I honestly really like this one. Now, of course, the last three just hit a bit different for me, but this was still another home run for What If. Now, in third place is What If the Watcher broke his oath. Now, of course, this is essentially the Avengers of What If, where they're bringing in all the different characters from the different universes. So you have Captain Carter, Party Thor, Killmonger, for some reason. You have T'Challa Star-Lord, and I'm trying to remember. Yeah, there was that, I'm just going to call her, like, Infinity Gamora, since I don't know what else to call her, but it's like that story that never got explored that I really hope they explore in season 2 is the Watcher and Strange Supreme uniting them to stop Infinity Ultron. And with this one, of course, I didn't really put it higher because it is just like the Avengers of What If. But even though it really is just that, it's still pretty awesome. Of course, all these different characters who have been on different journeys from their original counterparts, seeing them interact and put up with Thor, it leads to a lot of little fun antics, and them fighting Infinity Ultron, like, it's obvious, like, they know it's like, this guy's a big challenge, but we need to do this. So they're doing the best they can with what they've got, although thankfully they have one of the most powerful beings in the multiverse on their side with Strange Supreme. And the way that they take out Infinity Ultron makes a ton of sense. And the way that it ends with, Strange Supreme just keeping an eye on Zola Vision and Infinity Killmonger for the rest of eternity, I think it just serves as a nice redemption arc for Strange Supreme. This monster, this good guy turned monster, turned eventual little mini watcher in his own right, in a sense. And it's just, I think that is a really good way to redeem such an awful person. Now, of course, I love Doctor Strange as a character, but there's no denying Strange Supreme kind of sucked in that episode. So, yeah, overall, it may just be the Avengers of the show, but it still works. Right. Runner up is What If Ultron won? A doomsday story within the MCU. I didn't think we would get that until maybe like one of the Phase 5 projects. But I still think that as a doomsday story, this is still a very convincing doomsday story, which is essentially what if Ultron had successfully ported himself into Vision before the Avengers could get a hold of him. So essentially, you have Vision just going around, fucking everything up, taking control of technology, killing Thanos, and taking the Infinity Stones. becoming Infinity Ultron, and just going on a rampage throughout the universe, and then eventually targeting the multiverse to the point where even the Watcher has to step in and do something. Along those lines, you do also have Clint and Natasha uh, trying to survive in this Ultron-dominated world, actually putting Analog Zola to good use. I always kind of felt like Analog Zola was one of the weakest concepts from the Winter Soldier, or at least one of the weaker ones. So I'm glad that they found a way to give him a good use here. Now, what really holds this one back, at least for me, is while this is an awesome story, it doesn't hit me in the emotions as much as the last one does. And of course, if you've seen What If, this is probably to be expected. In first place is what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? Now, this is the concept of this episode. In the original Doctor Strange, before all the Mystic Art stuff, was driving to that celebration by himself. This time, Christine is with him, and when they crash, instead of, Doctor Strange fucking up his hands and all that, Christine dies. So, in this story, we follow a broken or a heartbroken Doctor Strange who is desperate to find a different outcome. No matter how many times he tries to bring Christine back, he always fails. Even when she's driving the car, this is something I didn't even notice until my second viewing. The last time that he tries before going on that big journey, he has her drive, so he'll die instead of her, and she still dies. That might just be one of the most heartbreaking parts of the episode, and it's so gut-wrenching seeing him try again and again every time when he would supposedly die. Then he goes over the edge, he freezes himself in place for 300 years, just consuming monsters, making himself as powerful as he can be, to the point where the only thing that he could potentially absorb to reverse everything that's been going on with Christine is himself. Now, that might not make any sense until you realize that the Ancient One split up, the Strange we were following with the Strange who decided to just put down the Eye of Agamotto and just not try, just, let go of the past for a while. And, I mean, sure, they probably could have done more with the Strange versus Strange fight. Like maybe do Strange Supreme Kaleidoscope Escher drawing reality. But that doesn't even begin to take away from how absolutely heartbreaking the final moments of this episode are. The universe is collapsing. Doctor Strange is doing what he can to keep Christine safe since he had just brought her back. But of course, that's an absolute point in time in that universe, so reversing it led to catastrophic effects, and he sees the Watcher. He sensed his presence earlier during the 300-year freeze frame, but now he's actually seeing him and talking to him and begging him to undo this, but the Watcher is telling him, nah man, I can't do this, can't interfere, that'll only cause more damage. You should know this. You should know that messing with time and reality only leads to more destruction. And I think really the most heartbreaking part of that whole conversation is when the Watcher leaves and you hear Doctor Strange say, I didn't mean for this to happen. It's like, he did a lot of bad things, but they were all with the right intentions. Okay, I mean, I guess now that I'm saying that they were pretty selfish, but he didn't mean to destroy the whole damn universe. And I think what might actually be more heartbreaking than that are Christine's last words to him. She goes, Stephen, what did you do? Before she fades away, and it ends with Doctor Strange on his hands and knees begging the void for forgiveness. I know how depressing that sounds, but this is easily the most emotionally packed episode in this entire series. And I'm glad that they took the what if concept and took advantage of it to create a much darker scenario. a scenario where it just ends with the main character losing, all being destroyed, and just the biggest emotions from the entire show. And that whole time I had to stay focused because this stupid face. I know that's not a face, but still, it looks way too much like just a happy face. But, anyways, but yeah, I don't know what this would overtake in the actual ranking if this were put up against some of the other top tier MCU films. It would score high for sure. It might actually like get above Guardians of the Galaxy and No Way Home. I don't know if it would get above the Infinity movies or above Civil War, but it would still rank highly because this is just a masterpiece. The other episodes are great. There are some movies that are really good that just had some issues. This is perfect. This is perfection. This is the best thing that you could do with this concept. And that's why it is, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many other people, the best episode of Marvel Studios' What If. So with that being said, what's my overall rating for What If as a whole? Of course, there are some high points, there are some low points, and then there's this episode, which is just perfection in and of itself. Overall, it's a 3 out of 5. This is a good show. This, I can't say it's a great show, but it's certainly, it could have been worse. They could have wasted a lot more of the ideas, but I feel like most of the ideas that they tried to tackle, they got home runs out of them. Right. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm sorry this is one of the longer ones, but it's a ranking, not just a single review, so of course it has to be longer. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, you know what to do. I'm not going to bore you with all that generic stuff. Anyways, see you guys in the next review. Take care.